Hello, everybody. Welcome. Happy Thursday, June 10th. This is Dr. Selma Bartholomew from Partner with Legacy, Dr. B here. This is our June webinar with Community Conversations with Leaders. Today, we are talking about the power of financial literacy. It is graduation season, so I want to extend congratulations to all of our graduates who are graduating from our high schools, our middle schools, moving up in kindergarten, and our college grads as well. Also, shout out to a few new doctors, PhDs and EDDs, Dr. Alexis, Dr. Boswell, Dr. Farrington, who was on our last call. So congratulations to our graduates. It's also June 10th. It was the morning of the eclipse. I missed it. I don't know if anybody else caught it. I usually catch it. I totally missed it this morning, but guess what? Mark your calendar for November 19th, and you should be able to get back on again on May 16th of next year, okay? Great. So I am honored and excited to have this discussion today on the power of financial literacy. I firmly believe that our beliefs and our perceptions about money and about business is certainly passed down from generation to generation. And so sometimes in our community and communities of color, you hear people say things like, well, the right hand don't have to know what the left hand is doing. And if you were told that money is not something to aspire to, or whatever those mindsets that those family dialogues that you may have had, I wanted to have this discussion today with this dynamic group of leaders and educators as we talk about creating access and opportunity to financial freedom, to wealth, and empowering not just our children, but empowering communities. So we have a dynamic lineup today. I have CEO Sabrina Lamb from World of Money, Principal Danielle Darby from the Brooklyn Academy of Global Finance, and co-entrepreneur, Mr. Achimboro Atande, who is an Esquire, a lawyer background, but also founder and co-partner of Uplift Communities. As you know, the format here, we're going to ask the panel members an introduction question as they introduce themselves. And I want them to maybe start off to talk to us about what does financial education mean to them? Why financial education? So I'm going to start with you, CEO Lamb, who's near and dear to my heart. Let me say thank you for your years of service and commitment to educating, not just young people, but educating communities about financial wealth and financial wellness. So please welcome CEO Lamb.
Well, thank you, Dr. Selma. Honored to be here. That's a great question, because when we talk about financial education, and sometimes we hear the phrase financial literacy, I don't use the term financial literacy because of the energy around the word. That children and often parents have often reported that it's almost assumed, or that they're not literate, that they're not smart. And, we see at World of Money that financial education is encouraging and pouring into children ages 7 to 21 with the knowledge that their management of money is harnessing one of the most powerful currencies on the planet, besides love or your religion. Yes, there's some, cross the eyes or, calculations or whatever, but if you don't believe that you or your life matters, or your life is worth saving, or your life has value, it's very difficult for you to internalize that you should save money, because you see money and the power of its currency as something external to you. So financial education begins with resetting those stereotypes, those understandings. Thank you for referencing the type of mindsets, because there are different mindsets. You have a room of 3 people, and each has a different mindset or behavior as it comes to money, from the dictator to the Disneyland to the martyr. And so one size does not fit all, and we must address those different archetypes of different financial mindsets in order to encourage and guide and support that child and their parent to shift, so that they can change the financial legacy and security in their family.
You heard it here. Talk about breaking the paradigm. So I'm no longer going to say financial literacy. That is so powerful to be able to shift our mindsets and that understanding around those fears and ingrained belief from parents. I'm honored to also have on our panel today Principal Darby from the Brooklyn Academy of Global Finance, an educator, experienced educator, leader, just committed to working with our children, working with families, and just doing a dynamic job of just creating a space to give young people access and opportunity to different initiatives and to that to academic rigor and that vision of college and beyond. So Principal Darby, introduce yourself and tell us, what does financial education mean to you?
Hey, thank you for having me, Dr. B. It's a pleasure to join this panel today and have the conversation. It's definitely an interesting point around the term financial literacy as well. And we don't, not intentionally, but we don't explicitly refer to our programming as financial literacy education either, because I think financial education is something that we're embedding into everything now. And it's definitely generational. I think about my family and the piece around mindset. And we are very much a culture of money now, money short term in our pockets, as opposed to understanding how to make money last and make it grow and make your money make money. And that's not something that I learned in school. It's not something I learned at home. It's something I'm actually in the process of learning since I've taken over this school. I didn't come to this school with a business background or any background in that. I came with an education background, and this piece, it's powerful. Money is the currency for everything. And understanding how to make that work is something that we try to instill in our students here. But understanding, as I said, that shift in the mindset from not just thinking short term, I have this much in front of me, but how can I make this last and how can I grow into something with the money?
Thank you so much, Dr. Darby. Welcome. And I also now have the pleasure of introducing Achimboro Atande. Achimboro comes from a law background, and he is part of a business consortium around working with businesses of color, Black businesses, to move their agenda forward. And he is the co-founder and co-partner of Uplift Communities. And it's an honor and a pleasure to welcome you, Achimboro. Thank you for making time today. So can you introduce yourself and tell us, what does financial education mean to you?
Thank you, Dr. B, and thank you so much. Thank you so much, CEO Lam. I really never thought of it that way, so I'm going to incorporate that into the way we approach it. As Dr. B said, as Uplift Community, we focus on several pillars we believe are instrumental for success in life. That is life skills, college and career readiness, entrepreneurship, and financial literacy. And we believe in order to, obviously there's other things, but these are some of the things that we're competent at teaching and promoting and training. And one of the things that really woke me up to financial literacy, so Uplift Community is actually my fourth company. It's my fourth company that I've started, run. And a big issue that I had, I used to double down on myself. So every company, I'm not really extracting money out. I'm just doubling down, hiring more people, more advertising, more sales, things of that nature, more technology. But always was interested in getting to the stock market. I just thought, hey, I'm going to make a lot of money, then dump it in, right? And somebody broke this down to me. And it's not only it's not only the stock market. There's real estate. There's other asset classes you can look into. But somebody said, no matter how smart I may think I am, or how many books I read, or how many coaching sessions I go to, I am not a better CEO than Tim Cook. I'm not a better CEO than Elon Musk. I'm not a better CEO than some of these amazing companies. So why don't I put some money with them so that it can grow? And I love it from that standpoint, is now I'm setting up extra revenue streams where it's not just me, right? It's not just my company. So let's say we all, whether we've run our own companies or we've dealt with companies, our family members run companies. Like typically most companies, there's an 80-20, and you have like 20% of your clients bring in 80% of revenue. And let's say those 20%, for some reason or another, they get upset with you, they fire you. That crashes your business, that creates stress, right? So being able to create these extra streams of revenues that even if the whole world is mad at you, you can still provide for your family, allows you to think clearer, allows you to do better business planning, allows you to select what clients you work with. So those are some reasons that I think financial literacy is important. Financial education is important. Thank you. So you see, I have to catch myself, but it's,
Yeah.
but I.
I totally agree. As an entrepreneur now, for partnering with Legacy and working with my team, I know that it makes a difference. I know that, especially in this space, when we're talking about, telling our young people to own a business and to start a business, we have such ingrained fears and beliefs about money, especially when you've been denied access and opportunity, right? In terms of capital. My dad used to say, it's not how much you make or how much you spend, it's how much you keep. And so that was a really important mindset. I want to go back to you, CEO Lamb. Can you talk to us a little bit about the narrative around financial education for Black children and children of color? And how are you going about changing that narrative for financial empowerment through World of Money?
So World of Money is the leading provider of 120 immersive classroom hours of financial education and entrepreneurial education for children ages 7 to 21. And I say immersive because financial education is not for us a one-hour workshop, dropping in and dropping out. It is almost, if those remember that Lipton commercial, where is that plunge? It's a plunge in terms of the world of money. And so we began with the history of money and how, when it comes to Black and brown children, how, Mansa Musa was from Mali. And often the perception is that people who look like me that were never aligned to anything that relates to wealth or very successful businesses. And one of the first experiences that our students, and we call them moguls, have is that we show them, first of all, we introduce you and teach you about Mansa Musa. We show them African descended role models who are billionaires, and how they're not just billionaires for the sake of being billionaires. How are they leveraging their wealth for good, right? So part of the equation when it comes to financial education and entrepreneurship should also be giving back, right? But teaching others how to fish as opposed to giving them the fish. So it's a complete whole child, holistic, historical, see themselves in the content. Our platform, World of Money, online.org, is led by World of Money children. So when young people log on, they see, and then they're young, and many of them are Black and brown children. They see themselves in the content. So that's the shape of it, and it's also cultural, because sometimes we say, well, Black children, brown children. But we need to even drill down a little bit more. And what I mean by that, for example, Lydia, 2 years ago, sitting in the classroom, we're having a discussion about, rich versus wealthy. And she was very uncomfortable. It just poured from her whole body language. And I asked to speak with her. And she said, she was from Colombia, and she said, in my house and my family, women have zero say when it comes to money.
Wow.
My mother, her name is not on any financial document. And I'm only here because a program from Newark sent me here and told me that I would get paid, and then I have to give this money to my father. So even in the Black and the brown community, we have to drill down more culturally, what's in the family, what are the norms there? Because then when we address those, then my question to her was, so see yourself as a young adult, let's say 10 years from now, what life do you envision for yourself? And I asked her to create a vision board so that she could see something different, as opposed to being on the outside in her very own family without any ability to contribute, even vocally, to the financial operations of the home or her very own life.
Well, thank you so much. And very interesting, right? And those are two different views. Has it worked? How's it working for you, right? And how do you even go about finding the voice in that culture right? How do you go about finding your voice and speaking truth to your future and to what it is that you envision for yourself? I want to get to Principal Darby a moment. Principal Darby, can you talk a little bit about the skills and experiences? What skills and experiences should we be equipping our students with in the classroom that will help them to gain financial independence as they as they're currently in the K-12 system, but also as they look beyond?
So some of the work that we do as part of our CTE program, we have a course that's the first course in the sequence, Career and Financial Management. But we don't only speak about financial management in terms of the business and career angle. We first do personal finance. And what are the pieces of personal finance? What does that mean? Savings account, checking account, box under the bed. We know students, have a different perception of how they keep their money. If you have a box of cash because you're fearful of putting in a bank, you're not making any money. It's a missed opportunity. Your money's not growing sitting in that box. So how could your money grow just personally? We like
Darby's trying to take Dr. B's box away. Come on now.
Hey, listen, we all have them. I have one too. And it's taken me a while to break out of having that stash of cash at home is nice to have on hand. But when we were all in lockdown, what good was that stash of cash? The people who had that money in the bank, that money grew tremendously. We saw how many people made money being locked down doing, not much. And that my cash stash it's depleted. It didn't grow. It's gotten a little shorter. It didn't grow. But I think for students, they first have to understand, I think absolutely the history, the purpose. And it's not just that you need money to buy that thing that you want today, and assets. And I think the missing piece, even for me growing up, my family owned things, but there wasn't a sense of it being passed down. And I think that's a piece that's been missing and is definitely missing in Black and Brown communities. And it's, our students are like, well, what am I going to own? You can own a home. We think, and myself included, for the longest time, I had friends who were purchasing homes and I'm going to rent forever. I don't have the headache of a home. They have assets, they have equity. I don't yet have that. I recently purchased a home, so I haven't built any equity yet. And these are things that I've heard people talking about that for so many people are never even a part of the conversation. So it's extremely important for us to instill that in our students and get them to understand these pieces for them personally before we can even get to career and financial management. So we build that in right away, but it's a piece of every single course. We're doing the business career piece, but we're also doing the personal piece. So when CEO Sabrina, you talked about that societal piece. When our students reach junior year and they're working on the business plan, why? What social impact will this business have? How will it benefit the community and your target population that you say you're marketing to? Other than you just making money from them, how are you assisting? How are you uplifting? How are you benefiting? What service are you providing? So building in that personal and societal piece, so we're not just producing bankers.
Well said, well said. Thank you, Principal Darby. Sierra Tunde, can you talk to us a little bit about what questions your young people that you work with in uplift communities, what questions do they come into the program with about financial empowerment?
So it's interesting. It's one of the things they typically dive into, just like everyone else. And I think this is one of the misunderstandings people usually think of, especially when it's younger people or even high school students. They typically have the same question as their parents would to me. And that's typically whatever is the hottest trend, they're asking questions about that. So whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's crypto, whether it's GameStop, AMC, that's typically their point of interest and the first questions that they start to ask. My goal typically, I think, is to get them to view one, highlight what are assets versus liabilities, because I think we truly need to have a clear understanding. I think most people unfortunately don't understand because we're not taught that, right? We're just things are automatically categorized as assets when that is not so. So really first defining that and giving them a framework for evaluating assets versus liabilities. And then the second thing is lean into their interest. So that's one of the things you have to get if cryptocurrency is the peephole that they're looking at financial literacy through, we start there and then we work there and we get them to build up and understand that's not the only asset class you can look at, right? Okay, you really want, all right, let's learn more about that. Let's focus on that. But then let's actually help you understand commodities as a whole, right? Let's help you understand equities. Let's help you understand real property. Fixed income. Almost no kid cares about fixed income. But starting with the interest, which is typically what's the hottest trend that's going on right now, and then making it real to them by connecting with them based on that interest into assets versus liabilities as a whole.
I hear all of that academic language and academic vocabulary. For us, we also spend a lot of time just on the math, right? You can't be financial, you can't do financial education if our students can't be successful and can't feel confident in math. I want to ask CEO Lamb, in terms of with parents, where do you start? How do you even get that started? Because I think as a parent, you know that you're responsible for this family, right? Even if you're a single mom, if you're a two-parent household, traditional household, non-traditional household, you're responsible. And so you may not feel like if you need to be having these open conversations about money and about, all of the burdens we carry, right? We carry a lot of debt and burdens as adults. So in your experience, CEO Lamb, where do we even start as if we were a parent trying to reach for this?
So World of Money annually has had in-person Parent Money Matters Forum. And during those forums, someone begins weeping, whether it's the father or the mother. And that's another layer of our conversation that I would love to share, is that our relationship with money is often emotional.
Absolutely.
Carrying a lot of emotion. And so the way that you phrased it, Dr. Selma, is in terms of the parent, feeling responsible, but they're also burdened sometimes with their own anguish. Maybe it's embarrassment, maybe it's anxiety, maybe it's anger, what they didn't experience as a child. I wrote a book years ago called Do I Look Like an ATM? A Parent's Guide to Raising Financially Responsible African-American Children. And often when I would share that with parents and they would say, oh, you need to give this to my child to read. I said, no, it's for you. And the reason why is because I break down all the parental archetypes, the parental attitudes. I mentioned some earlier, the dictator, the victim, the savvy, and others, and how their mindset, their emotional history impacts their child, with the hopes of the parent saying, I love my child, I've done the best that I can, I want them to have a different experience. And so now I see how what I'm feeling and the life that we're leading impacts my child, and often they do. But first, it's almost like no one wants to go to get a root canal, right? That's not our favorite thing to do. And often when we think about money and really facing our financial reality is painful. And as educators, or those who are thought leaders and advocates in this space, we have to recognize that when we're talking to a parent or a child, behind that bravado is a lot of fear and anguish and other emotions.
I so agree. And I feel like if in this space right now, in terms of the pandemic, so I'm going to open it up in the conversation of, of the pandemic. We're also in New York. I'm in New York. It's a mayoral race, and we see all of the commercials and things around, what we are expecting from the new mayor. And one of the candidates has out there that he's going to pay salaries for small business owners. He's going to pay the staff salary for half the year. And I'm listening to that from a business perspective, and I'm thinking, well, what's the point of me having a business, people, if I need the government to pay my staff salary, right? Like, where's the integrity in that, right? That says that there's a level of just the burdens that we are experiencing, in our communities, and there's not this honest conversation about what we need to be building in terms of businesses, in terms of economic empowerment, and and financial education.
And where are you going to get that money? Where are you going to get that money?
Exactly, from taxes, right? Hopefully from taxes. I don't even know, but it doesn't make sense to me. Every time I hear it, I think, who put this out there that you would pay half my salaries for my employees? And then the other piece also, which I'll share with the audience, for Black and Brown businesses, the only employee you have usually is yourself, because it's so hard. Less than 3% of Black businesses have other employees. We have, 1099s and individuals, because it's so hard when we don't get access to contracts and access to opportunities. So this conversation about economic empowerment and financial empowerment is so important, and it comes at all different angles. There's the family, there's the society. So I want to ask a question. I want to go back to you a second, Principal Dalby. Talk to us about the pandemic a little bit, and how have you, maybe as a school, been impacted, and what do you see in terms of any of that impact, in terms of your work in global, as the High School of Global Finance for Brooklyn, any shifts that you've had to make as a result of the pandemic and creating access and opportunity?
Aside from shifting remote, one of the things that I was concerned about is how it would impact our CTE program, our partnerships, because we do a lot out of the building, a lot of opportunities for students to go out and visit businesses, interact with industry professionals outside of the school. And luckily, we were able to shift those partnerships for the most part virtually and have them still interact in the virtual space, which actually made it a little bit more personalized. And it also gave our students access. We now have access to international partnerships that we didn't prior have access to. And I think that everyone's had to work in this virtual space. I think there is an opportunity for us to make connections for our children and for our students that we didn't have prior, because not everyone was necessarily willing to get on Zoom or Skype and speak to a group of teenagers in a high school. And I think now that everyone's had to do it, there's more comfort around it. And so, for example, one of our partnerships with Accenture, they're a huge organization. They've brought people in. They've always brought people in from their New York office. So while those individuals may have had international experiences, they're based in New York. During this time, they were able to bring in panelists who have worked all over the place or who aren't actually even sitting in New York, which were things we weren't able to do in the past. So I think we can open them up to global markets that we weren't able to make connections to before. So that's one of the ways we're looking to expand what we're offering and keep that piece of the virtual learning. We know they're a little tired of Zoom right now, but I think when it has to do with money and it's about future experiences, they'll be willing to jump on Zoom with someone. But I think the piece for our families during this time, and speaking about the economic impact, our families have really been on the losing side of this pandemic. We had to open a food pantry in the school. We did grocery delivery. We provided a bunch of different supports. Luckily, we also were able to secure a grant where not only were we able to do our paid internships for the upperclassmen, but we were able to provide stipends for students for engaging in our work-based learning opportunities. So each student who engaged in work-based learning a series of hours over the course of the year is currently receiving a $300 stipend. And it's a drop in a bucket, but it also brings that piece home for them. You're doing work-based learning, and now you're earning for that as well, which is kind of been a missing piece in a CTE program about finances and money. If the students aren't seeing something and they were out getting a job, they look at it like, well, I can get a job after school. I don't need to go to an internship, or I don't need to sit in this training seminar. Now we were able to bring that piece a little bit at a time where they really needed it. I'm just hoping moving forward, we'll be able to continue doing something like that. But it did engage the students more in some of the virtual sessions because they got that personalized support.
Thank you. It is so nice to be champions, and that is what I know about you and the staff and your leadership, being champions for kids and being champions for families. CEO Tunde, can you talk to us a little bit about partnerships, especially in the context of the pandemic, and what partnerships have you made and why, in terms of getting more information and more knowledge and access for young people and those that you are seeking to build their financial education. I have burned financial literacy out of my mind today, CEO Lamb. It's done. I will no longer Yeah. Go ahead, Achimbo, if you would kind of think about partnerships for us a little bit. I know Principal Darby shared about just creating how the pandemic opened it up, access to international partnerships, but I'm just wondering in the context of your business, any changes that you see as a result of the pandemic?
So there's two major changes in terms of partnerships. Well, I won't say changes, but it's allowed us to expand our talent pool where we select from, since we're now able to do Zoom. And so we're able to bring in people from across the country who, honestly, some people are better for us than some of the candidates that came from New York. So we brought in people from North Carolina, Florida. We actually have somebody from Colombia. She's amazing. We have somebody from Colombia. So bringing in those types of partners, employees to help educate who have real experience in whether it's investing, whether it's in real estate, things of that nature, who have real experience. Now, the second initiative, which is more on the newer side that we're working on right now, is working with finding and recruiting financial fiduciaries, so investment advisors to partner with so that we can pass some students along who want to learn more about this or want to become involved, whether it's an internship or whether they want to get have their finances on track, especially as they're going into college and beyond. Partner with those and vetting people so we can create create a roadmap. They can have an assisted roadmap to get to their financial goals where maybe we wouldn't be able to get as granular because it's a larger group setting. We can pass them on to somebody else who will be able to get granular with them and their family and allow them to understand how to get to their goals. So those are the two major partnerships I'm seeing. Dr. B, it's not on financial literacy, but getting close with the consortium that we've been creating of Black business owners and really diving into creating a stronger network that isn't limited to New York.
Absolutely. CEO Lamb, I know that you've had this dynamic, right? Years of experience of just working closely with families and being that the hard work of working with our students as well. So you certainly can have a very inner perspective of how the pandemic has impacted our families. So I want to ask though, how do we prepare the next generation for the next financial storm? Because there's always a storm, right? But what do you think we need to do better to prepare for the next storm?
Understanding that financial education is not an intellectual endeavor. It's something that we must do right now. It's not for the storm, it's for life. And so once we apply what, the students and parents apply what they learn at World of Money to their life, they can endure and navigate through any financial upheaval. So it's not something in the future. It's something right now. And sometimes there's opportunities. Over the last year, I pray that, all of us have looked for opportunities, but not for opportunistic purposes, but how can we use this upheaval, this global upheaval that is still going on, by the way, and use it? How can we determine to hit a reset button in our life? If we weren't saving before, we got to save now. So we can have two things: options and access. And for World of Money organization, we leverage the power of technology to continue our 16-year mission. So we launched worldofmoneyonline.org, and this year, leveraging that platform, we have World of Money. Our institute is virtual. And what I'm excited about is that the students who are enrolled are not just from New York. They're from other countries, they're from other cities, and they engage and learn from virtual mentors and influencers that come in every day. And so sometimes, there was a lot of pain during the pandemic that's still going on, but there's still a lot of opportunity. And if anything, that I hope it's a reminder for all of us, including myself, and how I need to be really more intentional to make sure that I have, a secure financial security.
Thank you. For those who are audience, thank you so much for listening. Please make sure you like and subscribe. The initial title of this was The Power of Financial Literacy. We're calling it The Power of Financial Education, The Power of Financial Education. Put your comments and questions for us. And I see a couple of people have already texted me one or two questions. I know as I think about this space right now that we're in the pandemic, I think we've absolutely benefited in terms of the fact that there was such a digital divide and finally people are aware of it. And that we're not going to go back, right? But we realized that in order to move our children to STEM and to that STEM workforce, we needed to have that access and opportunity. We've always been advocating to get our teachers online, and there was just so much happening in the building that was just constantly pulling, right, away from them. And so I felt like if even in the storm, there was a quietness or there was a space that allowed new growth and those raised expectations. As I think about this, though, I do have to think about it through the lens of compassion, because I'm going to go back to that debt and debt burdens and what we're experiencing in this pandemic. And yes, we have some sense of financial relief, but when I hear people say things like, oh, people would rather, stay on unemployment and they're lazy and they don't want to work. That's not true. People have always worked hard. We've always worked hard. It's just the fact that you have a business and you're not able to, why shouldn't you be able to pay a decent wage to individuals, right? And if you're feeling this weight of this pandemic, which so many of us are, I think you have to have compassion for yourself, because I hear you, Sabrina, in terms of, and everybody in terms of the savings and the assets and the all of that. And it could be so overwhelming when you're still being redlined in certain communities, when you're being denied access and being denied opportunity and fundamentally being denied it, right? Those who are listening, the Dr. B is always honest with you. I'm always telling you that, as a Black business owner, we don't, in New York City, it's the South. It's the absolute South, right? If you look at the checkbook from the comptroller, 89% of the money went to white businesses, and the small 1-2% went to businesses of color. So you can't lift people up economically if you don't have access. So I think I have to keep going back to the compassion button. If not, then the anger might take over.
And the enlightened button as well, because
okay.
it includes financial education, I believe, includes that reality. And also teaching our children how many communities have harnessed, economics through boycotts or whatever to push back the systems that have historically redlined them and emerge victorious. But also speaking the truth, because a couple of comptroller debates ago, World of Money moguls were the co-host of it. And one of the questions was, so there's a 3% access rate in terms of, African-American business owners having contracts with New York City, diverse New York City. Why is that? And why has it always been that way for over a decade? That's financial education.
Well said, well said. I want to talk about our college grads because it's June. It's June, and we know we have so many who are stepping into college and about to graduate. So Principal Darby, I want to get a sense in terms of, we certainly know that, it's college debt is a significant debt on our young people. And so I'm curious to know what your students' perceptions are about, going to college, and what are some of the things that our schools might be able to do to help to alleviate and to help them to address those fears about going to college and the debt and debt burdens that they may think that they may have as a result of.
The debt and the money piece is what keeps most of our students and their families from choosing college as a long-term viable option. And a piece of it is that mindset around, I can't pay for this now, so I'm not going to get it because I don't want a loan. I think there is a value to taking student loans, but I think there's an education piece that is seriously lacking. I wouldn't be sitting here without my student loans, but I shouldn't have done what I did with my student loans out of lack of education and not really understanding what actually happens when you pay them back and how much in interest you pay them back paying the minimums versus doing a more balanced payment plan and those options. And I think those are all things that at the high school level, that is a piece of our role to educate families and students when we're aware of it because we're living it.
Mhm.
I'm constantly having the conversation with students about, yes, I took student loans. Yes, I'm happy I did because I wouldn't even be able to have this conversation if I didn't. However, these are the pitfalls I ran into when I took these loans. And people are always, wow, you shared that personal piece of information. Yes, because this is how we learn. We don't learn from reading something in a book that no one we come into contact with experienced. We learn from hearing, this is what my experience was, now I'm sharing it with you in hopes that you can gain something out of it. And I think that even myself, I'm not fully as educated in what the different repayment options would be. I was waiting on loan forgiveness. I thought I was with the correct lender. 10 years, sign that form, yay, my loans are gonna get forgiven. 2 months later, get that letter back, oh, you're in the wrong provider, you don't even qualify. And here's the new repayment plan that if you pay for another 10 years, this is what we will forgive, 0, because by then I will have paid it off. You know, I think these really laying out for students as part of the, you know, this is the FAFSA form, but really this is how student loans work. This is the compound interest on those student loans. If you continue to defer and not pay anything, if you default, they will come after you. And I think we need to be very explicit with students and families because we used to think that colleges did that. They absolutely do not. Higher ed is a business. They're in business, you know, the same as other businesses are. So I think really it is morally inherent on us at the high school level when we are doing that college counseling piece to really make sure that we are being clear with families that a loan can be a good thing. It absolutely can be, but don't rely on it for everything and do understand it has to be paid back. And here are the different options to pay those back.
Thank you. Thank you for that honesty. And I so agree about to build relationships with children, right? You have to share your story. You have to share your voice. I'm mindful of the time as well. For those who are listening, please make sure you like and subscribe. We're having a conversation here today on the power of financial education. I want to ask you, Otande and Achubaro, about your work with college students and your work around helping them to understand the debt and debt burdens as a result of student loans. And also, I know you do a lot of work on also youth empowerment as well.
Awesome. Yeah, that is great. And I think for us, it circles back to assets and liabilities. And one thing we try to get students to understand, which I wish I knew when I was in college, is sometimes you can turn something into an asset by minimizing how much it costs you, and getting them to focus on that. For example, things that I wish I did when I was young. I wish I was a resident assistant, so I didn't have to pay for room and board. I wish I did that. I wish I was more serious about searching for scholarships. I wish I started off at, I actually started off at St. John's. I wish I started off at a state college and figuring that out and getting serious and then transferring. So allowing them to understand that there's several ways to minimize their costs. There's another thing that we bring up into one of our more creative solutions that we tell them, depending on where you go, you can start your real estate portfolio. You may need the help of your friends, not your friends, your family, but show enough income, whether it's through gifting or another source job, get a FHA loan, 3.5 down, buy a multifamily, rent it out to your college roommates, and then essentially you will not be paying room and board. In fact, by the end, with appreciation, you should be making some money. And then when you move out, you have a cash flowing asset, right, to move out. So that's some of the things we try to teach them in terms of these other scenarios that they can take to generate more cash flow or reduce their liabilities.
Thank you. Thank you so much. CEO Lamb, Sabrina, are there scholarships out there? I mean, is it real?
So right, Now we're a nominated, World of Money is a nominating partner for the Posse Foundation, which provides 4-year merit-based scholarships. We're a Posse New York nominator, Posse Chicago, and Posse Atlanta. Everyone who hears me that can recommend.
Tell us what Posse is, though. I don't think most people know.
Posse Foundation provides a 4-year merit-based college scholarships to top schools in this country. Okay, 4-year merit-based. So if your parent makes $1 million and you can go through, you're academically talented, you can be considered. And so the purpose is so that not only children who may not have had that opportunity can receive or have a quality education, but can graduate from college debt-free. So I just want to underscore, if you know any academically talented students in New York, Chicago, or Atlanta, email Darrin, DARRIN, at worldofmoney.org. The deadline is approaching soon. We have about 3 or 4 Posse scholars in the World of Money community. We're looking for more. Any academically talented child. Now, what was your question, Dr. Selma?
No, I fully agree. So I thought I wanted to just confirm. And I say that because you know, and I'm going back to parents again, and we really try to connect all of the dots. So last month we had Amber Peters from Ms. P that talked about how she's, you know, her platform and just making the college process accessible for those who are viewers. Please take a look at that, you know, Legacy Ed News. And so today we wanted to spend some time in June, you know, talk about financial wellness. And I say that because sometimes there's just all that noise out there, and so many people are saying, you know, yes, you know, there's scholarships. Yes, there's money over here. But as a parent and as a student, when you're walking your path and you're living your life, it can feel very overwhelming, and it can feel like, how do I even go through this? And I'm always honest with people, when your kid is going through college as a mom or a dad, you're going through your own life changes. Your hormones are going crazy, and you want to just be able to have them survive, right? So it's important to actually know, is there actual resources out there? And so they can connect to World of Money, and you would be able in your organization to be able to share.
And I would also like to add that, you know, this pathway to college and to pay as least as possible starts early. Mm-hmm. So let's not get prepared for college when we're in our junior year. Leveraging your academic seriousness begins very, very, you know, when you're very, very young. And making sure that you do well and you see that your education is important, and doing well academically is important. Also, you know, connecting with your principal, the school leaders that can perhaps direct you to resources. There is a lot of money out there, and sometimes the scholarships, they're not even applied for. It's not like there's a line out the door. People are applying for these scholarships, but you have to be, yes, you have to be eligible, and you have to be serious about your financial education, because there are ways that you can graduate debt-free. Absolutely.
And you've got to get organized and have the stamina to do it.
Yes.
I'm mindful of the time. And so as I come down to my closing question, I want to ask each panel member to answer the following. It will take courage and honesty for us to overcome the problems of our financial system for our young people. What is the one thing you hope that we can be honest and courageous about over the next 4 years as it relates to financial empowerment? What's the one thing that you think we should be honest and courageous about as you look at the dynamic work that you're engaged with young people and with communities? I'm gonna start with you, Atande, and then I'm gonna go to Principal Darby, and then CEO Lam. So what do you think we should be honest and courageous about? Achimboro from Uplift Communities. And also, Achimboro, can you tell us where to find you first? Can you tell our audience, you know, your website, where to find you, and then answer the question?
Thank you, Dr. B. You can find us at upliftcommunities.com, also on YouTube. Search Uplift Communities. We actually have an amazing interview we did with Dr. B, so you can go listen to that. So one of the things, and that's something we focus on our YouTube, and is to be honest with yourself and your close circle, the circle that cares about you, about where you are on your journey. I think that's something that doesn't happen enough. So when there's shortfalls or shortcomings, nobody knows to help because they don't know we're slipping in a certain way. They don't know we've gone off track. So I'm not saying that. I know we're being courageous, but not with everyone. This is not for everyone.
True.
But having your tight circle and you're being honest about where you are on your journey, so other people can chip in and help you. I'm not talking about finding, but chip with advice, connections, opportunities, things like that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You're so right. You're so right about that. Principal Darby, what do we need to be honest and courageous about?
I agree with you. And I think kind of building on that, besides where we are personally, be honest about what we don't know about financial education, because no one can help and no one can help fill in those gaps if we don't know, if we're not willing to even speak about what we don't know about it. And I think the other piece, I hope we can be courageous and actually empower our children to start building generational wealth and really giving them the tools and the knowledge, and not teachers and educators not saying, well, I didn't have that, and and not kind of holding on to that, because I think that there's a very tight-knit pool of resources that people really don't want to share. And I hope people can really be courageous and start sharing those resources, because when everyone is doing well, we will all do better.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Principal Darby, and much love to the community at the Brooklyn Academy of Global Finance. Thank you so much. CEO Lamb, tell us where to find you again, and also what do we need to be courageous and honest about over the next 4 years?
Asking ourselves the question, or be willing to forgive ourselves. We're adults. Just forget about what you didn't do, how much you spent. Just start over. And the question for all adults, particularly parents, would you be willing to provide immersive financial education for your children? And if so, visit worldofmoney.org. We are registering now for our sessions, and it's an amazing virtual experience. And you can find World of Money online, and on Instagram, I'm Boss Sabrina Lamb.
Thank you. And I have to say, I was a parent of World of Money, and she absolutely just changed my life. One of my dear friends, Michelle, her kids. It is absolutely, truly empowering, because you're absolutely right. As a parent, sometimes we think we have to do it all. We have to know and understand it all. And Achenborough, your answer also touched me, because I think that we always do feel like money is something that's really about trust. And when you feel like if you're not doing it well, or that you mess up on it, you feel like everybody's kind of that level of just trust. You broke trust with yourself, and then, how do you truly ask for help in a space like that? Especially when not too many people got enough to go around anyway, right? But you have to at least, have that, courageous conversation, and allow people to help you, and to allow people to give access to you. I am hopeful that we will be courageous about the honesty about where communities of color are in terms of economic empowerment. I'm always speaking about the lack of access and opportunity for businesses of color, especially in STEM. 5% of the workforce is in STEM, and STEM is the future in terms of people of color. 2% are optometrists. I mean, we are just not in the fields of the future. And when I see President Biden's plan, and they talk about semiconductors and the trillions of dollars in the vaccines, I'm just sitting there thinking, wow, how do we get access to that if we don't advocate? So I'm hopeful that this awakening will give voice, and with the education, the wonderful work that all of you are doing, will now give people the knowledge and the expertise that they need to ask, and as Principal Darby noted, to even know what we don't know, and to be able to be courageous for it. I want to say thank you to each of our panel members. Thank you for a dynamic conversation on the power of financial education. We're not going to say financial literacy anymore. The power of financial education. Call a friend. Please share with us. Please, we look forward to seeing you again next week. Next Thursday is our Legacy Ed News. So Thursday mornings, we do Legacy Ed News, and then we do our Legacy webinar. We will also be doing the Ed News on our Black farmers, and in Philadelphia, we missed that. And so please know we will put that up in the next couple of weeks. Wishing everybody a wonderful Thursday. Please enjoy the start of summer. Please continue to stay safe. And once again, thank you to our dynamic panel. Please make sure you like and subscribe and connect to each of the different panel members. We will make sure and put their information also in the comment box below. Wishing everyone a great day.